The question was, why should you consider attending Faith Lutheran High School? Obviously, your children. You guys are not going to be attending the high school personally with us. But what are some of the reasons that we feel that you should consider Faith Lutheran High School? Well, first of all, I want to talk to you about some of the factors that go into deciding on a high school for your children. There are many different factors that people consider when they are deciding where to send their children for high school. For most parents, these include factors such as preparedness for college. Will the children be ready at the end of their 4 years to be able to go to college? There are many fine schools in the area that will prepare children for college, including ours. If you have seen in newsletter and other things like that, we have had students accepted to Baylor and to Rhodes and to Johns Hopkins and all kinds of different colleges that they've been accepted to. So obviously they are prepared for admission to the college. They also have usually been the top scoring students in the classes they're taking over at Collin. They usually outscore the students that are over there. So preparation for college is a strength of ours as well. We're going to talk a little bit later about how our high school prepares them not just for college but also for life. Many of the public school districts in the area also do a good job of getting them ready for college. A second factor that people look for is academic excellence. Now, academic excellence means different things to different people. In terms of having a ton of different programs, lots of different electives, many different levels in math and science and other areas like that, the local public schools certainly do a good job with that. We believe that we have an excellent academic program here as well that prepares them in many different ways. We are a college preparatory program. Everyone does take 4 years of science, 4 years of math, 4 years of English, 4 years of history and economics and all of that. And they also take at least 3 years of a foreign language in our school as well, and most of them take 4 years or more of foreign language as well. The main core of our academic program that makes for excellence has to do with the books that they read, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Another factor that people look at are having many opportunities to try new things, including extracurricular activities. With a current population of a whopping 11 students, this is not one of the strengths of our school right now at this point. As we get more students, there will be more opportunities for that. Obviously, the big public school districts in the area have many opportunities for students to be involved in different things. Please keep in mind that there are many students that want to participate in them, so just because you decide you're going to try out for something doesn't necessarily mean you get to do everything that you want to do, even in these big schools. But they certainly have a lot more opportunities at the bigger schools. The more students we get, the more that we can have additional opportunities as well. Cost is a big factor that people consider as well. Now I have to say, since my oldest is a senior this year, this has become a bigger thing that I'm looking at myself, and I can understand parents' concern on this a lot more. When I went to college, they had you fill out your financial aid packet to figure out how much they had to give you so you could go to school. Now they have no problem leaving a gap, and we're finding that out as my son is getting accepted at all of these colleges. So I can understand when people say that they're concerned about spending the tuition money instead of banking it to help with college later on. That is a concern that people have. As far as cost comparison, we are by far the least expensive high school, private or Christian high school opportunity that's in the area. The last thing that a lot of people look at, and I hate to say that this is a primary mover for a lot of families, and I wish it wasn't, but a lot of them has to do with a lot of people, unfortunately, choose to let their children make the decision. And I would encourage you as parents to be parents. You should take into consideration your child's feelings, certainly, but be a parent and you make the decision based on what you feel is best for them. A 14-year-old is not necessarily equipped to make a decision about what's the best location for them to go to school. So I want to encourage you to be cautious with that. All right, so these are the things that oftentimes people take into consideration. Now I'm going to throw out to you what I think should be the most important consideration. I think the single most important factor should be spiritual development. I think that that should be very high on people's list and it should be something that is given a lot of attention. Now, most people will agree with me on this. Most people that send their kids to a school like this obviously would agree that spiritual development is important. Where some people will differ with me is when I make this statement. I'm going to state that I believe that public schools daily and deliberately attack and chip away at faith. Now, the people that disagree usually disagree for one of two reasons. First of all, they believe that the attacks on their children's faith are rare or minor. Or secondly, they believe that their children have already been properly prepared to fight against these attacks. I'm going to deal with the last one first, and then we'll come back to the other one in a second. So first of all, you ask the question, aren't my kids ready to face all this after years at faith? Well, I'm going to say yes and no. Yes, they are better prepared than without spending the time here. But they're still adolescents. Well, what does scientific research tell us about peer influence among adolescents? Let's go over a couple of things. First of all, there are two main features that seem to distinguish teenagers from adults in their decision making, says Lawrence Steinberg, a researcher at Temple University in Philadelphia. During early adolescence in particular, teenagers are drawn to the immediate rewards of a potential choice and are less attentive to the possible risks. Second, teenagers in general are still learning to control their impulses, to think ahead and to resist pressure from others. These skills develop gradually as a teen's ability to control his or her behavior gets better throughout adolescence. Second study here, according to Dr. B.J. Casey from the Weill Medical College of Cornell University, teens are very quick and accurate in making judgments and decisions on their own and in situations where they have time to think. And that goes against what a lot of people think. A lot of people think that teens, because of their age, can't make good decisions, and that's not true. Most of them, if given time and no pressure on them, know the difference between right and wrong. However, when they have to make decisions in the heat of the moment or in social situations, their decisions are often influenced by external factors like peers. And the last piece of evidence, I think, is an important one as well. According to Lawrence Steinberg, who is a psychology at Temple University, peer influence during adolescence is normal and tends to peak around age 15, then decline. Teens get better at setting boundaries with peers by age 18, which to me begs the question, is 14 or 15, when they're in 9th grade, the best time to send them away? That's when the peak for being influenced by their peers is. And then it declines later on. Now, regarding the other argument, which is that they don't really have that many attacks on their faith that take place out in the public sphere. It's time to stop living in the past and wake up and see what's going on in the world around you. We are at war. It's not a physical war that's easy to see, it's a spiritual war. Ephesians 6:12 tells us, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." This war is for souls, including the souls of our children. It is also the main reason why parents should choose Faith Lutheran High School. Do not be deceived. There are deliberate attacks on our children's faith through things such as the influence of language and behavior. Hearing foul, coarse language will at first shock and horrify many of our kids, but after 4 years of being daily blasted with it, a toll is taken. They may not start using it, but the offense that was once felt is no longer as strong as it was. I know this from personal experience. I went to a Lutheran school through 9th grade, and then we lived in areas that didn't have one. And the first time I heard people using Jesus' name as though it were an everyday word to use, and dropping the F-bomb, I was shocked and horrified by it, and by the end of my senior year, I still didn't like it much, but it didn't bug me like it used to. It takes a toll when it keeps happening over and over again. Secondly, what they will be taught about sexual morals takes a toll as well. They'll be taught that homosexuality is just the way that they've been raised and that that's perfectly okay and fine. They will be told that sex before marriage is fine as long as it's safe. They will be told and see on display that dressing provocatively is an okay thing. Those types of things will take place. Thirdly, teaching about evolution. Now, evolution, yes, we teach about the theory of evolution so they know what it teaches and so on and so forth. The part that I'm talking about that takes a toll is, after years of being told that it's not a theory, it's an absolute fact that's been proven by science, even though it isn't, they begin to have doubts about what they've been told here when everyone else in the world is telling them that everyone knows this is true. In addition, evolution, it's not just what it teaches about creation, it's the worldview that it pushes. If you believe in evolution completely, you believe you are an accident of nature. You are not the product of a loving God who created you personally and numbers the hairs on your head. You are an accident of nature. And that begins to affect your perception of yourself and how you should be acting in the world. Finally, the teachings about the fact that our postmodern world does not believe in absolutes anymore. As a result, and I know this from my mother teaching in the public schools, it is exceedingly difficult to tell people that they're wrong if you don't have a standard that everyone agrees to hold to. And it's even harder to actually administer discipline then. So it's a big deal that takes place in there. This is one of the things where in a public school it's very difficult for them to encourage and chide students to strive for Christian virtues or for fulfilling their responsibilities and duties. And this is one thing that Faith Lutheran High School excels at doing. Alright, so what are some of the ways that we are different? Or some of the ways in which we excel at doing this? First of all, they read and study the entire Bible during their 4 years of high school. Not many adults have read every book of the Bible. The students that attend our high school will read every book of the Bible in the 4 years. Even the ones that are really hard to get through, Pastor. There's a few of them that are a lot harder than others to get through. But they will read every book of the Bible during their 4 years here. Secondly, they participate in daily devotion, prayer, and discussion about the faith. One of the things that people give for a reason why they would like their kids to go out to public school before leaving home is so that when they encounter the things of the world, they can discuss it at home and so on and so forth. I think that would indicate that your perception is that they don't encounter the things of the world here at our school. They don't encounter drug usage being sold right here and so on and so forth, but we certainly have a lot of discussions about the sin that's in the world. When they start going over to Collin, they get exposed to things over there, and then they get to come back and discuss it as a group and talk about what they saw and what they experienced and why it's different from what they have been taught. And it's a great opportunity for them to strengthen their faith. And then thirdly, the classical Lutheran school model teaches reasoning and discernment. How? Well, let's go over a couple of, I want to mention 4 books that they read. There's lots that they read, but I want to mention a couple things from 4 of the books that they get an opportunity to read. For example, they study Aristotle's book, Nicomachean Ethics. And in that they learn that moral virtues, like crafts, are acquired by practice and habituation. What this means is, he goes on to say that intellectual goodness, knowing it up here, is the result of instruction. But moral goodness, actually practicing it, is the result of habit. He talks about how if one wants to become a builder, one practices building. If one wants to become an instrument player, one practices playing an instrument. And he says virtue is the same thing. If one wants to be known for being temperate, one performs acts of temperance, self-control. If one wants to be known as brave, one practices acts of bravery. If you want to become just, you do just acts. In other words, you don't simply flip a switch at age 25 and suddenly you're a hard worker. It has to be practiced. You don't suddenly at age 25 decide that you're going to stop being selfish. It has to be practiced. There are opportunities for them to practice these things here at Faith Lutheran. They do a lot of service projects and service hours as well, which gives them an opportunity to put into practice these things as well. Now, I want to make sure that you understand, we do work on these virtues and practice these things, but it is with a gospel emphasis. It's with a gospel focus, meaning that we do not work on virtue in order to please God. We work on virtue to respond to the love shown to us in Christ by loving one another. Just as it says in the great hymn by Paul Speratus, "Salvation unto us has come," where it says, "Works serve our neighbor and supply the proof that faith is living." That's the purpose for the works. They serve the neighbor and are of the fruit. Another book that they read is called Fox's Book of Martyrs, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a cataloging beginning with the very early church of many, many different people that were martyred for the faith, and it goes all the way into the 20th century. And it is an awesome opportunity for them to see that the people in the past, look what they had to go through in order to hold on to their faith. And it makes it easier than when you say all that we have to deal with is somebody maybe teasing you because you say, "I would really appreciate if you not say Jesus' name. Could you find another word to say?" And that little bit of teasing or razzing that you get over that, what is that in comparison to when Nero took the Christians, covered them in pitch and tar, and used them as torches to light his garden while they were still living? What is that in comparison to that? It's nothing. And so it helps them to be strengthened in their faith. A third book that I want to mention is The Pilgrim's Progress. John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. In this, they see an analogy of the life of a Christian as they follow Christian, the main character, from the city of destruction all the way to heaven. Now, one of the nice things about the Pilgrim's Progress is all of the characters and places are named exactly what they stand for. So when the character faithful comes along, it's a pretty good guess he's going to be faithful. When the character double talk comes along, you can pretty much guess what this character's like. Okay? It's a great one because it is an analogy of the life of a Christian as we get to follow a Christian from the city of destruction all the way to heaven. First of all, he comes in possession of a book, which of course is the book of the law, the Bible. And when he comes into possession of this book, it tells him that he is a sinner, that he lives in the city of destruction, and that he is destined for hell. He's terrified by this, and he does not know what to do. He's greatly distressed in his mind, and he runs out from the city, and he is out in the countryside, and he yells to the world, "What shall I do to be saved?" And along comes Evangelist, who says, "Why dost thou cry?" He answered, "Sir, I perceive by the book in my hand that I am condemned to die, and after that to come to judgment. And I find that I am not willing to do the first, nor able to do the second." Then said Evangelist, "Why not willing to die, since this life is attended with so many evils?" And the man answered, "Because I fear that this burden is upon my back, and it will sink me lower than the grave, and I shall fall into hell. And sir, if I be fit not for prison, then I am not fit, I am sure, to go to judgment, and from thence to execution. And the thoughts of these things makes me cry." Then said Evangelist, "If this be thy condition, why standest thou still?" And he answered, "Because I know not whither to go." And Evangelist says, "Enter through that narrow gate and walk the pilgrim's path," which has got all kinds of different things that he runs into on it. But one of the cool illustrations on this, after Evangelist points the way, is he's got this giant backpack of all of his sin that weighs him down so that he's constantly got his eyes down on the ground. And he comes to a hill and he begins to climb the hill. And he's got his head down because it's so heavy. And then he perceives that the ground is leveling, and he lifts up his eyes and he sees the cross. And as soon as he sees the cross, the burden on his back falls off, rolls down the hill and into the sepulcher, and is gone forever. That doesn't mean he never sins again, by the way. He still messes up along the way. But the burden of the guilt of his sin has been swallowed up by Christ's atonement. It's just a great story that they get a chance to go through. And you get to follow him throughout the rest of his life as he runs into all kinds of other temptations and so forth throughout the rest of his life. And eventually makes it to heaven. It's a great analogy, though. The last book that I want to talk to you about then is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. In this, the students get to learn about the work of being a human being. First of all, it was written to his son. Marcus Aurelius is a Roman emperor, unfortunately not a Christian. Not only not a Christian, actually persecuted Christians. But if you read this book, it's astonishing how close he came to the truth in here. And it almost makes you want to cry thinking about, man, I wish this guy could have been a Christian and come to knowledge of the truth. Because so many of the things, using his reason and his observation, he could see pointing to what he ought to be and knew that he fell short of it. He just didn't know that he could be redeemed for it. He, by the way, was a Stoic. So for those of you who don't know what a Stoic is pretty much, if you're having fun, you're probably doing something wrong. That's pretty much how Stoics operate. Okay? So it's written to his son. He begins at the beginning, which is one of the assignments I make the students do. The whole first chapter is things that he's thankful for. So he goes through and he says, from my grandfather Versus, I learned good morals and the government of my temper. And he goes through and lists all these different things for which he's thankful for different people. And it's just a great thing. So I make them do the same exercise. Go and list something that you are thankful for from your father, from your mother, from your grandfather, from your friend, from your so on and so forth. And then I encourage them to make this one of the assignments they hold on to. And I said, long about the time you're having your first child, take this list back out, and I'll bet you'll have a ton of things to add to it that suddenly you're thankful for that your parents did for you that you didn't think of now. Because it's amazing the older you get, the more you realize how much your parents did for you. So they get to do this assignment. Then he goes on to teach him that the actions of others are not within our control. All that is within our control is our response to it. So I'm going to read you just a section of what he writes in here because I like the way he talks about this. Begin the morning by saying to thyself, today I shall meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial. All these things happen to them by their ignorance of what is good and what is evil. But I, who have seen the nature of the good, that it is beautiful and that it is akin to me, and the nature of the... I lost my spot. And the nature of the bad, that it is ugly, and the nature of him who does wrong, that it is akin to me. I can neither be injured by any of them, for no one can fix on me what is ugly, nor can I be angry with my kinsman nor hate him, for we are made for cooperation, like hands and feet, like eyelids, like the rows of upper and lower teeth. To act against one another then is contrary to nature, and it is acting against one another to be vexed and to turn away. By the way, it's a great thing for an administrator to read because somebody's going to come in every day and have some sort of a issue that they want dealt with in there. So it's a good reminder for me as well that it goes with the territory. It just goes with the territory that you're going to have to deal with things. Right? So I like that section. Another thing that it does a good job of is teaching him to do his duty. And what he concludes is that the duty of a human being is to serve your fellow man. That's what he concludes the duty of a human being is. Which is interesting that a non-Christian came to that conclusion that that's what we're put here for. I like this section here because a number of you had seen me in the morning when I'm still getting my coffee into me, and you know I am not a morning person. I have never been a morning person. I will never be a morning person. So I love this section here because I think it speaks directly to me. In the morning, when you rise unwilling, let this thought be present. I am rising to the work of a human being. Why then am I dissatisfied if I am going to do the things for which I exist and for which I was brought into the world? Or have I been made for this, to lie under the blankets and keep myself warm? Ah, but you say, is this not more pleasant? Well, do you exist then to take your pleasure and not at all for action or exertion? Do you not see the little plants, the little birds, the ants, the spiders, and the bees working together to put in order their separate parts of the universe? And are you unwilling to do the work of a human being? Do you not make haste to do what is according to your nature? Ah, you say, but it's necessary to take rest also. It is necessary. Nature, however, has fixed bounds to this too. She has fixed bounds both to eating and to drinking. And yet, do you not go beyond those bounds, beyond what is sufficient in your acts? It is not so, but you stop short of what you can do. So you do not really love yourself, for if you did, you would love your nature and her will. But those who love their several arts exhaust themselves in working at them, and continue unwashed and without food. but you value your own nature less than the engraver values the engraving art, or the dancer the dancing art, or the lover of money values his money, or the vainglorious man his glory. And such men, when they have an ardent passion for a thing, choose neither to eat or sleep, rather than to perfect the thing that they care for. But are the acts that concern society more vile in your eyes and less worthy of your labor? And it points out how when you got somebody who really loves what they're doing, they forget about eating, they forget about sleeping, they just work at it all the time. Why do we not feel that same way about service to one another? So it's a great book that helps them to learn some things from that as well. These are just a couple of the books that we will get an opportunity to go through in there. For any of you that may have an interest, I will be doing a series of we'll probably try to get through 3 or 4 over the course of the year, but I will be offering some of these books for parents that want to go through a book with us as well. Next year, we'll start with the Pilgrim's Progress. It'll be the first one that I offer next year. So if some of you are interested in that, we'll try to figure out a convenient time, and people can read sections of the book and then come have me lead you in a discussion on the sections of the books as well. So if you're interested in reading some of these books and getting an opportunity to learn some of the things that the students are learning, that is going to be available to you next year as well. In closing, I ask that you would please pray for and support this worthy ministry of Faith Lutheran Church.